The biggest mistakes that organizations make in trying to improve the quality of their service is that they say, train the front line. Because you can go right ahead and train the front line, but if the front line is not supported by supervisors and managers and senior leaders who understand the same principles, who articulate the understanding, who walk the talk, who role model on a regular basis, then you're asking the front line to do something for which they don't really have top-down support. That's mistake number one. Mistake number two is that companies think that training will solve the problem. Well, education is an important component, but there's so many other things that surround anybody who goes to work. Those other surrounding or supporting elements also influence the way they think, influence the way they feel, influence the level of commitment that they have, and the way they demonstrate that when they are serving other people. So all of those culture building, culture supporting elements must also be aligned in order to produce an outstanding, a superior service culture. If all you provide is the training and the other elements are not in place, you're not recruiting the right people, the orientation experience is boring, the service communications are old posters on the wall, or what's in the newsletter is just company propaganda. If the people who are getting rewarded are all the salespeople but not the service people getting the recognition they deserve, if your metrics are aiming at certain things like cost reduction but they're not really aiming at customer experience, then you're asking people to solve the problem just by training them. And that's a mistake. You've got to build a culture that surrounds your service providers and gives them that ongoing support and encouragement on a daily basis for every day that they come to work. The biggest barriers that we face when we start working with large organizations, I think, can be looked at three different ways. One is that everybody wants to produce the same result. They want a superior service culture that creates delighted customers, that increases market share and profitability, raises reputation, attracts and retains the best staff. But they're fragmented in how they go about understanding that and trying to take action on it. So you've got the operations department doing one thing and sales is doing something else and human resources is over here and marketing has got a different message, and nobody's ever pulled them together to do the serious work that needs to be done about understanding as a whole organization what is the service experience that we want to produce, what are the fundamental components required that we do together to be able to make that happen. So, if you will, a lack of unifying, coming together of leadership and management with frontline and all of the different organizational functions to get aligned to produce this culture. That's one area we frequently see a problem, is a historical fragmentation. The second area that we see a problem is practices, historical practices, legacies, if you will, that are already in place. This is the way we do it. Why? Because that's the way we do it. Why? Because that's the way we've always done it. And there may be certain key performance indicators that are driving that behavior, or there may be certain kinds of measures, metrics, or reports that are consistently done that way. But we need to have organizations take a fresh look at some of these different areas and see whether or not the impact of that is actually leading people in the direction of providing increasingly superior service, or whether some of those legacy practices are producing people who come in and do what they've always done. So that requires a certain bravery, if you will, a certain courage to really look at our existing practices and ask ourselves, are these things actually sending the right message? Not only to our staff today, but for what we want for tomorrow. So that's the second area. And the third area, candidly, is attitude. That we encounter very senior people who, the only way you're going to get to be very senior is if you're very good at what it is that you do. And so you may be very good at what you do in any particular area of the organization, but it doesn't mean that you've naturally understood how to be very good at building a superior service culture. So the willingness of somebody in a very senior position to say, this is an area where I'm seeking some guidance. This is an area where I'm willing to listen to advice. This is an area where I could get some coaching from somebody else who could really help us with some best practices, with some benchmark examples, with some really good technology to be able to come in and help us make that improvement. That can be a challenging thing for senior people to say, yeah, I want that support, I want that help, and I'm willing to listen.